Hello everyone, this is Corey Youngblood, and this is the main event of Dead on Arrival. This is going to be a little bit complicated to explain, but I'm going to do my best here. Right now, we are going to go into a match between Bret Hart and Bryan Danielson. There's some numbers on the screen. I will explain those in just a moment. First of all, we're going to go through this matchup, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip this coin. Not that one. That's a die. We're going to flip this coin. Now, this coin will determine the entire trajectory of the matchup. As you saw, it is Bret Hart versus Bryan Danielson. If this coin shows up heads, that match will remain the same. If it shows up tails, however, it's going to be Bryan Danielson versus Bret Hart. And I'll explain why that's significant in a moment. It is tails, so we're actually going to switch the categories here. So Bryan Danielson is over here. He has 218 points to start out. And Bret Hart is over here, and he has 232 points to start out. So I went through all of the title history of Bryan Danielson and Bret Hart. I assigned about 5 points for every world title they've won, and about 3 points for every mid-card title they've won, including tag titles. And I came up with a value for them based off of that. I then added this onto their cage match rating, which I think Bret Hart is rated 9.6 and Bryan Danielson is rated 9.5. I just moved that up to 96 and 95. So I added those two together. I then multiplied this by their win rate, their win percentage. Bret Hart is at 64% of matches he's won, and Bryan Danielson has won 61% of his matches. I then added a base number of 85 because both of these guys are main eventers and they're going for the world title. So that is how we got these values here. Now, I'm going to explain how this match is going to work. Since Bryan Danielson is the first competitor, the way we're going to play this game is we're going to roll a die and we're going to flip a coin. Very simple. So I'm going to roll this die for Bryan, and he gets the values 3, 5, and one more, and 6. Okay, so for Bryan, for him to hit a finisher, he will have to roll a 3 or a 5, and then for a critical move, he'll have to roll a 6. Now, for Bret Hart, we will do the same. For Bret, he'll have to roll a 4, a 2, and a 5. Okay, so for Bret Hart, his finishers are 4 and 2, and then his critical move is a 5. I will explain that in a little bit as well. So, in order for this game to be played, for Bryan Danielson to hit a move on Bret Hart, he will have to roll an odd number and then an even number, and that will hit Bret Hart. If he rolls 2 odd numbers in a row, that means that he'll recover some points. He'll either taunt or it'll be some sort of rest hold or something like that. Same thing goes for Bret Hart. If he rolls an even number and then an odd, he'll hit Bryan. And if he hits 2 even numbers in a row, that'll be some sort of rest hold where he can regain some of the points he lost right here. Or it'll be a rest hold. So something like that. Or a taunt. That's what I meant. I won't edit that out. This is going to be a whole, just freeform clip. Okay, so I have all of their signature moves right up here. So I did some research. Bryan Danielson and Bret Hart, I have 38 signature moves for both of them. For Bret Hart, we have 2 finishers, the sharpshooter and the pile driver. For Bryan Danielson, we have 7 finishers, including the Busaiku knee and the yes lock. And then we also have some high spots. Now, high spots are triggered by rolling a finisher plus the critical. Now, these high spots can only be done once per match, but they will cause some significant damage to the opponent. We also have the injuries that Bret Hart and Bryan Danielson have suffered over the years. Now, Bret Hart has a history of multiple concussions, as does Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. I use the term, interchangeably. Bryan also had a broken arm, and he also has some neck damage, nerve damage, that sort of thing. I didn't include all of the injuries. Like Bryan Danielson has had issues with his eye before. He had a detached retina. He had a fractured orbital bone. I don't really see those as recurring injuries per se, not like something like concussions or an injured neck or a broken arm might. So that is how we'll do this. Now, if there's any move that these guys hit that would target, for these guys in particular, the head, the neck, or the arm, then we will we'll do another dice roll. And if they hit the critical, that will amplify the damage that move causes. Okay. So I explained it as best as I could just in this very brief little snippet. I think that we'll learn best by doing. So let's get right into it. These matches will have a time limit. That natural time limit is the battery life of my fully charged laptop, so we'll see how this goes. Also, if the snipping tool just crashes on me, then we'll never see this video, and I'll just write up the match. I don't know why I mentioned that, because you won't be listening, but anyway, let's get to it. So this is for the KYR World Championship, the inaugural KYR World Championship. It is Bryan Danielson versus Bret Hart, live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Here we go. Okay, the first roll, that is a 5 and a 5. Okay, so Bryan's going to start out with the taunt. And we'll give him an extra point there. Bret Hart rolls a 2 and a 1. Okay, that is a hit on Bryan. That is a 2, so that will be a finisher. But it's not critical. Okay, so now Bryan is going to roll. If we get a 3 or a 5, Bryan will reverse the move. And he does not. So Bret Hart is going to starting things off with a, is that the pile driver? Let's see. It is the pile driver. So that is interesting. So we already stated that it's not a critical hit, so that's going to be a pile driver to Danielson to start the match, which is just wild. And let's see here. That will be 15 points. Every finisher above 85 points for both men will be 15 points. As the match goes on, the point value of these finishers will degrade. Yeah, they'll degrade. So like I think it's between 25 and 85 finishers will be 10, and then under 25 finishers are 5. And then signature moves go the same route from 7 to 5 to 3. And then if we get into negatives, that's a whole different ballgame there. But okay, so Bryan right there. And Bryan just took 15 damage to the head. I don't have that up on screen because I really didn't know how to keep track of that. But Bryan has 85 points on the head. If that reaches 0 or goes into negatives, then Bryan will he will face the risk of injury, actually. So going back here, every finisher is followed up by a pin. So Bryan needs to get one roll that is an odd number out of the next 3 rolls. If he doesn't, he can also use the rest of his reversals that he has. Right now he has 5 reversals because we're starting the match. You can recover the reversals through the match as well. So let's see. Bryan kicks out at right before 1, which is phenomenal. Okay. Gonna keep it going. Bret Hart has control. He's gonna hit Bryan again with a signature move. So let's see what that is. 38 on the random. And that was a 33. He's going to hit some stomps. Okay, so the way strikes work, we will target a body part here. If I can find this, okay. We'll target a body part here. 1 will be head, 2 will be torso, 3 will be arms, and 4 will be legs. So he's kicking him in the head. Now we move to this coin. Bret Hart is odd, that means he's tails. Actually, no, Bret Hart is even, which means he's tails. Bryan is odd, which means he's heads. Now, Bret will land at least one stomp on Bryan, in addition to however many times this coin will hit tails here. So let's see how it goes. Okay, that's 1. Okay, so 2 stomps to Bryan's head. That should be, I said 7 for signature moves, so that'll be another 14 points from Bryan. Bryan is down to 190. And his head is down to 71 health. Okay, rolling right back to it. Okay, that's odd, so that means Bryan is regaining control here. And he's taunting. So that's the recovery of 1 point. You can just imagine it. Bryan asking Bret Hart, hey, come on, hit me. Give me the best you got. Bret Hart responding, even. Bret Hart responding with a taunt of his own. Could be talking trash, could be spitting at Bryan, we don't know. We can imagine though. And even more, we'll say he now has Bryan in some sort of rest hold, just trying to wear him out. 1 and 2, Bryan coming back, he has control now. He's the 6, which is a critical. So let's see what that would be. So we have 5 high spots there. Gonna hit high spot number 2. And that is, if I can find it, diving knee off the apron. Okay, so this will be a little bit goofy just on the raw footage. And honestly, I'm recording this mostly just for the accountability of it all, just so you guys know I'm not making this up, that this is truly random and it's just the nature of the game. But when I do the write-up later, which I will post to Reddit, this will make a little bit more sense. I'll kind of work the magic so that it does make sense. So Bryan's going to hit the diving knee off the apron. These high spots, I didn't count on them to be reversible. But since that's a critical hit, if Bryan rolls another 6, because of Bret Hart's head injuries, we will see if that does double the damage. And it is not. Okay, so Bryan is going to hit the diving knee off the apron. If I can figure out where I'm going. There we are. Okay, and that will cause 15 damage. High spots will do the same amount of damage as any finisher. So that's 219, not 2219, 219. There we go. All right, we keep going. Bret Hart taking back control. Hits a 4. That will be a finisher. Not sure if that hit. Let's see. And Bryan cannot reverse. So let's see what finisher that is. No, this one. Bret Hart now hits the sharpshooter. Okay, so that will be a base of 15 points to Bryan. Oh, I should also mention, Bret Hart now has 85 health on his head. Okay, so that's a base of 15 points of damage to Bryan. That brings him down to 176. However, we go back to this coin, and this will determine how long Bret Hart has the sharpshooter locked in. Actually, that's the die. Okay, this will determine how long Bret Hart has the sharpshooter locked in. It works the same as strikes. Every time that the coin will land on tails, it will be an additional 7 points of damage to Bryan. If it lands on heads, then the hold is broken and Bryan's free. And Bryan's free with only 15 points of damage. That goes to his legs. He's at 85 health on the legs. Okay. Okay, that's Bryan on Bret. And Bryan's turn to hit a finisher now. Okay, so Bret needs a 4 or a 2 to counter. And he does not. So let's see where this goes. Go to Bryan's finisher tab. Hits 1. Actually, no, he has 7 finishers. That was for his high spots. Hits 1 anyway, so that will be the Busaiku knee. We'll roll one more time, see if that's a critical hit. Bryan needs a 6 for it to be critical. And he hits it. That's phenomenal. Okay. So Bryan hits the Busaiku knee. That'll be 30 points of damage since that's a critical hit. Now, if Bryan hits another critical like that in the future, that damage will be tripled. So instead of 30 points of damage, if Bryan's still over 85 points, it'll be 45. So let's see where that goes. We're back here. Bret takes 30 points of damage, so that'll be 189. And Bryan will go for the pinfall off of that. Now Bret only needs to get a 2, 4, or 6 to kick out. Okay, that's 1. That's 2. That's 3. Okay, so Bret still has 5 reversals, and he can use up each of those reversals for an additional chance to kick out. So we'll see how many reversals he uses up to kick out here. 1, 2. Okay, Bret uses up 3 reversals. No, Bret has 3 reversals left. He uses up 2. So Bret has 3, Bryan still has 5. And Bret's head is now at 55 health from that critical hit. Alrighty. Let's get back into it. That's Bryan on Bret. And another finisher from Bryan. Okay, let's see if it's critical first. It is not. Let's see what finisher. Well, actually, let's see if Bret can counter. 4 or 2. And he doesn't. Okay. Bryan's going to hit number 7 of his finishers, which is the yes lock. He locks in the yes lock. So that will be 15 points from Bret Hart on the base. So that brings him down to 174. And now this coin is flipped. So Bryan is odd. That means he's heads. Every time that the coin lands on heads, that's an additional 7 points of damage from Bret Hart. If it lands on tails, then Bret Hart is free. I don't think that flipped. Okay, Bret's free with only 1. That's a 2. On 2, Bret Hart's going to recover a little bit. So he gets 1 point for every recovery. Yeah, and being a submission hold, I don't have a different health system for Bret's neck, which I think is what the label lock pretty much targets. So he'll get off of that one scot-free. He still has 55 on the head, though. Don't know why I flipped that. That's not what we're doing. Okay. All right, 2 and 2. Bret's going to recover again. Give him another point. We're tied at 176. 2 and 2. Another recovery for Bret. Imagine he's rolled out on the floor trying to get his bearings here. 1 and 1. Bryan in the ring. Maybe starting a yes chant. 1. Don't think that counted. And 2. So Bryan's on Bret here. Hitting a 6. That is a critical hit. Let's see what that would be. He already hit the diving knee off of the apron. So let's see what this one will be. We'll do 4 neglecting the apron hit. 1, 2, 3. Bryan hits a springboard cannonball to the outside, which is actually something I saw him do in the match he had with Swerve Strickland at All In 2024. Yeah, I did a little bit of research into both guys trying to get the signature moves for this match. For Bret Hart, I watched his match with Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. I watched his match with Owen Hart at WrestleMania 10, and I watched his match with the British Bulldog at SummerSlam 1992. For Bryan, I watched his match with Zack Sabre Jr. at New Beginning 2024. I watched his match with Swerve Strickland at All In, as I said. And I watched his match with Will Ospreay at Dynasty 2024. So that's where all these moves are coming from. Where am I? There I am. Okay. So Bryan hits the cannonball out onto Bret Hart. That will be 15 points of damage there. 62. And by the way, when I stated that the critical hit would be the same for all that offense onto Bret Hart, I meant solely for the Busaiku knee. So if the Busaiku knee hits him again, it will be 30 points of damage, unless Bryan can hit another critical, which will bring it up to 45 points of damage. Come back to it. 1 on 2 with a 4. Now Bryan needs a 3 or a 5 in order to hit his finisher, so that is the signature. Let's see what that brings us. 38, 33. What is number 33 for Bryan? Bryan locks in the surfboard. Okay. So that will be a base of 7 points for Bryan. Brings Bret down to 155. And we'll flip this coin to see how long it takes Bret Hart to get out of it. So heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. And Bret's right out of it. Okay, so that will bring his legs down to 93. Bret's head, not his heart, but his head, is still at 55. Bryan's head is at 71. Bryan's legs are at 85 from the sharpshooter. Okay, 1 on 1. So Bryan's going to recover a little bit. 2 on 2. Bret Hart also going to recover. You can imagine them talking trash back and forth right now. 1 on 2. So that's Bryan on Bret. With a 3. That will be a finisher. Let's see if Bret can reverse with a 4 or a 2. He does not. Okay, let's see if Bryan can hit a critical. He does not. All right. So for Bryan, he has 7 finishers. Number 6. What is number 6? Triangle choke with elbows. Okay. So Bryan will lock that in on Bret's head. That will be 15 points right there. And we'll flip this coin to see how much additional damage he can do. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. Bret's right out of it. Okay, that will bring Bret's head down to 40 there, because the triangle choke does focus on the head, plus those elbows are no joke. So let's see what else we can go. 2 on 1. Bret finally getting some offense back, and it looks like that is a finisher. No, not a finisher for Bret. Okay, so signature move for Bret. 35. Let's see what 35 is. 35 is a superplex. Okay. So for Bryan, that'll be 7 points for Bryan. It'd be kind of wild if Bret carried Bryan from the triangle choke all the way up to the top and hit the superplex. That would be pretty crazy. So that will bring Bryan's body down to 93. Let's see where they go from there. 2 on 1. Bret keeping up the attack. That's a signature. 15. Oh, right over here. Bret Hart gonna work on the legs here. Gonna do a hamstring stretch. That'll knock Bryan's legs down to 78. And his overall health down to 164. 2 on 2. 1 recovery for Bret. One on 2. Bryan coming back into it with a 3. That's a finisher. Let's see if Bret can reverse. He cannot. Let's see if Bryan can get the critical. He does not. Okay. Bryan going to hit his second finisher, which is the cattle mutilation, I remember. There it is. Okay. So that will be the first move that puts pressure on Bret's arms. So that'll knock his arms down to 85 just as a base. Let's see how he can get out of it here. 1 for Bryan. And there. Okay. So Bret took 15 plus 7. That's 22, which means he's down to 120. And that means 22 off of his arms for the health. So that will be 78 health on his arms. On submissions, the guys don't go for any pinfalls. The way submissions work, once a person gets down to 0, any submission is an automatic tap. So that is the reason that we have these base health points here. That's a 2 on a 1. Bret coming back. And he's coming back with a finisher, which is really good because that's what he needs right now. Let's see if Bryan can counter with a 3 or a 5. He cannot. Let's see if Bret can get a critical with the number 5. He does not. Okay, let's see what finisher he's going for. Pile driver or sharpshooter. That will be the sharpshooter. Okay. So if Bret continues to get tails, that will be to his benefit. If Bryan can get heads, he'll break out of the hold. That's 1. That's 2. Okay, so that's 14 plus 15. That is 29. 29 points from Danielson here. So that brings him down to 135. And his legs were at 78. They will now be at 49. Yeah. Now, if Bryan's legs go below 0, that's not the end of the match, but it does risk injury for his legs going forward. After the match, he'll have to recover, and it could lead to some sort of injury to his legs, which will play into future matches down the line. Going back in, 2 on 1 with a 1. That is a signature move from Bret Hart. 24. Let's see what 24 is. 24 is the good old pendulum backbreaker, which is not a move that I thought Bret Hart would hit often, but he hits him just about every match. So that will target Bryan's body. His body is now down to 86. And his health drops down to 128. One on 1, so Bryan's going to recover. Might roll out to the floor on that one. 1 on 2. Right back into it, though. And Bryan is going to hit his signature on this one. So 28 for Bryan. Slaps. Okay. So let's see what area of the body he's actually. You can really only target the head or the chest with a slap. It would not make sense for him to be slapping at a leg or an arm. So let's do 1 or 2. 1 will be head, 2 will be chest, and just think of it as like an overhand chop. I'm going to slap at the chest of Bret Hart here. So let's see. That will be at least 1 for Bryan. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. That's 1. Okay, so 2 chops to the chest for Bryan. That'll bring Bret Hart down to 106 because that's 14 points of damage. And Bret's chest will be at 86. There we go. Okay. All right, 1 on 2 with 1. That will be another signature from Bryan. 37. Let's see what 37 is. 37 is a wrist throw. So that's on Bret's arm again. That was at 78. It is now at 71. And that'll bring Bret below 100 to 99. Now, Bret will want to avoid going down to 85 because that's when his moves will start to degrade. The finishers like his sharpshooter or the pile driver will go from 15 points to 10, and all of his signature moves will go from 7 to 5. Okay, 2 on 2. Bret's going to recover right back up to 100. And as I mentioned before, Bret Hart used up 2 reversals to kick out of the pinfall attempt on the Busaiku knee. He just used 5 recoveries. Now, once you use 5 recoveries, you actually regain one of your reversals. So instead of having 3 reversals left, Bret Hart now has 4. Two and 2. Bret Hart going to recover one more time. Brings his base up to 101. 1 on 1. Bryan is also going to recover. Now, Bryan still has all 5 of his reversals. He's at 4 recoveries. If he gets a 5th recovery, that will not count towards his reversal recovery. 5 is going to be his ceiling there. 2 on 2. Bret's going to recover again. And I forgot to give Bryan back a point, so we'll do that. 30. 102. 2 on 1. Bret striking Bryan with a signature. 17. What is 17? 17 kicks. Okay, so let's see what part of the body we'll go with. Number 1 will be a kick to the head, 2 will be torso, 3 will be arm, and 4 will be legs. And it'll be to the head. Okay. Now, since that is an issue for Bryan because of his multiple concussions, we will roll one more time to see if it is a critical hit. Needs a 5, doesn't get a 5. Okay, so kicks to the head. All right, so Bret will, by default, land 1 kick. Every tail on the coin toss will be an additional kick. If it's heads, then Bryan will get back in the fight. Okay, that's another. Okay, 2 kicks to the head from Bret to Bryan. That'll bring Bryan down to 14 points. 116. And his base health for the head, additional 14 points from 71. That will be 57. 57 on Bryan's head. 2 on 2. Additional recovery for Bret. 2, 2, 1 more recovery. Bret Hart is 1 recovery away from getting his 5th reversal. That'll be fully loaded once again. 2 on 1 with a 5. That is a critical. That means we're doing a high spot here. Now, what will that be? We have 3 high spots there. Number 2, what was that? Bret Hart locking in the figure 4 leg lock around the ring post here. So that will not trigger any sort of submission, but it will do some damage to Bryan's legs. So that's 15 points of damage. Actually, we'll give him the opportunity for a reversal. Bryan needs a 6 to reverse that. And he does not get it. Okay. So 15 points of damage. Bryan's base health is at 101. His leg health is down to 34. It's not too grand. I haven't determined any sort of system to regain health for body parts in particular. I'll have to kind of brainstorm that. We might change rules as the season goes on, but as of right now, them's the breaks. So right now, Bryan's legs are hurting him the most at 34 points. Right now, Bret's head is hurting him the most at 40 points. The other thing I love about this sort of game is that no matter who seems to be doing better, it always seems to come down right to the wire. We saw Bryan 30 points ahead of Bret. Now they're neck and neck, which is something I love. 2 on 1. That is another roll. That's another critical. Okay. So we just used up the figure 4 around the ring post. Going to do 2. What will that be? Body slam into the ring post. Okay, so that's going to focus on Bryan's body. Let's see if he can counter with a 6. He cannot. Okay. So that'll be 15 points of damage to Bryan's torso there. That's from 86 down to a 71. And that'll bring his base right down to the cusp at 86. If Bryan goes below 86, his finishers will degrade from 15 points down to 10 points, and his signatures will degrade from 7 points down to 5. Let's see who takes control. Bryan has control over Bret. Going to hit his signature here. Going back into the ring, perhaps out of desperation at this point. That was 16? That was 16. And he's going to hit some forearm smashes. So let's see. Let's select the target since that is a strike. So 1 will be to the head. 2 will be to the torso. I don't really think you can... Well, you could hit a forearm strike to the leg if it's like a chop block, so we'll count that. Actually, no, we'll do head and torso. Chop block is its own move, so 1 or 2. It'll be 2. Okay, so to the torso. All right, Bryan's heads. Bret is tails. I don't think that flipped. Okay, so 1 forearm smash to the chest for Bryan. That brings Bret's torso health down to 79, and his base health down to 97. All right, let's see. 1 over 1. Bryan going to recover. Covering 1 point of health there. 2 and 2. Bret going to recover. And Bret now has all 5 reversals back. So both men have all their reversals. Give Bret 1 more health point there. One over 2 with a 5. That is a finisher for Bryan. Let's see if Bret can reverse it with a 4 or a 2. And he cannot. Okay. So let's see what move Bryan hits. He hits the Busaiku knee. Okay. He hits the Busaiku knee. So that will be 30 points of damage to Bret Hart. That will knock him down to 68. And that will knock his head health down from 40 to 10. Now that is because of the critical that Bryan hit earlier. That critical stays with the Busaiku knee. Man, oh man. Okay. So this will now be a pinfall attempt. And Bret immediately kicks out, perhaps on instinct. Excellent. Okay. So Bret Hart is now down to 68 points, health points. So his finishers have degraded. His finishers are now going to be worth 10 points. His signatures are now going to be worth 5 points. 2 over 1. The 6, that will be a signature. And actually, since this will take 7 points from Bryan, that will knock him down below 85. So he would not want that. So let's see if we can get a reversal with that. Bryan needs a 3 or 5 to reverse. And he does. Okay. So let's see what move Bret was going to go for. 34. That is... Bret goes for the sunset flip as a reversal. That would technically be another pinfall attempt for Bryan, but let's see what he hits here. Okay. 3 or 5 will be a finisher for Bryan. Nope, it will be a signature. Okay. So sunset flip countered into number 9, which is a cross arm bar. I can see it. I can see it happening, so that's pretty cool. All right, so that will be 7 points off of Bret Hart to begin with. And let's see, half 7. We'll call it 3 points for every additional point flip. So Bryan is heads, Bret is tails. Okay, that's 1, 2, 2. Okay, so 2 additional, that's 6 plus 7, that's 13. So from Bret's 71 points on his arms, 13, that brings him down to 58 on the arms. And 13 points from his overall health, that brings him down to 55. Two on 1 with a 5. That is a critical. Bret Hart will hit his final high spot of the match, which is a slingshot plancha to the outside. I remember that off the top of my head. There it is. Okay. So slingshot plancha. Let's see if Bryan can counter real quick. He will need a 6 to counter this. And he does not get it. So that is 10 points because it's equal to a finisher. Bryan is now down below 85. That means his finishers have degraded to 10 and his signatures have degraded to 5. I did mention that he has the critical on the Busaiku knee. Instead of 30 points, that'll now be 20 points because it's double of the base hit there. Two on 1 with a 6. That is a signature move from Bret Hart. 37. Let's see what we can do with 37. Oh, I also need to take away a reversal from Bryan. Bryan is now down to 4 reversals. 37, swinging neck breaker to Bryan. Now that, oh, that could actually be a critical. Hang on. Let's see if it is. Bret needs a 5 for it to be critical. And it's not. Okay, so swinging neck breaker. That will target the torso of Bryan. 5 points from 71. That'll bring him down to 66. And it'll bring his overall health down to 72. One over 1. That's 1 recovery for Bryan. Two over 2. That's a recovery for Bret. I picture this as a double down in the middle of the ring. 1 over 2. That's Bryan over Bret with a signature. 5. Let's see what 5 is. Butterfly suplex. That will target the body. That brings Bret's health down from 79 to 74. And his overall from 56 down to 51. 2 over 1. Bret coming right back with a 6. That's a signature. 3. Let's see what 3 is for Bret. Bulldog, the patented Bulldog from Bret Hart. So that will target Bryan's head. So let's see if it's a critical. Needs a 5. It's not a 5. Okay. So 5 points from Bryan's head. That brings him from 57 down to 52. And his base points from 73 down to 68. Still a pretty close match. 2 over 1 with a 2. That is a finishing move from Bret Hart to Bryan Danielson. Almost called him Daniel Bryan. Bryan counters with a 3. That's pretty good. Let's see what move he was going to hit there. Was going for the pile driver. Actually, no, that was the sharpshooter. Was going for the sharpshooter. Bryan counters. Let's see what Bryan counters with. If he gets a 3 or a 5, that'll be a finisher. And he does not. He counters with the signature. 20. Bryan is now down to 3 reversals. Counters the sharpshooter with a Hurricane Rana. Honestly, I can see it. I can see it. I'm going to say that attacks the body of Bret Hart. So we will go with 74 down to 69. And Bret is down to 46. Don't think that rolled. All right, 2 over 1 with a 2. That is another finisher from Bret. Bryan can counter with a 3 or a 5. He does not. Okay, so let's see what Bret hits here. Still hangs on with the sharpshooter. Okay, so remember, Bryan's legs are not in the best shape. They're at 34 points. They will now be down to 24. Let's see how long it takes him to get out of this hold. So, tails are for Bret. Heads are for Bryan. Bryan immediately gets out. That's good. So 10 points from Bryan. That brings him down to 58. His legs are now at 24. That is the part of his body that is hurting him the most right now. Okay, 2 over 2. Bret is going to recover 1 point. 2 over 1 with a 4. That is another finishing move. Let's see if Bryan can counter with a 3 or a 5. He cannot. Okay. Let's see what move he's hitting. Right back into the sharpshooter. One for Bret. Okay. So that will be 10 points for the sharpshooter in general, plus an additional 5. That is 15 points from Bryan. 15 points from Bryan's legs in particular. That brings his 24 points down to 9. 9 points on Bryan's legs. He is risking injury. His legs are now worse for wear than Bret Hart's head, which is pretty insane to think about considering all the abuse that Bret Hart's head has taken in this matchup. So 15 points from his base, 58 down to 43. Bryan Danielson is now lower than Bret Hart's base points, which I don't believe it's happened since the beginning of this match. 1 over 2. Bryan really needed that. With a 2, that'll be a signature move. 38, 20. Let's see what 20 is. Another Hurricane Rana. Now, since Bryan has hit the Hurricane Rana earlier in this match, we're going to give Bret Hart the opportunity to counter with a 4 or a 2. And he does. So Bret counters the Hurricane Rana. Let's see what he counters it into. 2 or 4. 4 finisher. And he does not. It will be a signature. Number 9. Let's see if this works. Counters that Hurricane Rana with an elbow to the knee. I can see it. I can see it. So that will bring Bryan's leg health down to 4. He is really risking injury here. Base points down to 38. And Bret Hart now has 4 reversals instead of 5. Keep that in mind. 2 over 1. The 5. He no longer has any more high spots, so that will be a signature for Bret. 5. Crucifix pin. Okay, so instead of assigning any damage to Bryan, we're just going to go into a pinfall attempt. So Bryan needs an odd number to kick out. And he kicks out at 1. Or before 1 even. I don't know why I did that. Okay. Back to rolling. 1 over 1. Bryan going to recover 1 point. Two over 2. Bret going to recover a point. 1 over 1. Bryan going to recover. 2 over 1. With a 4, that is a finisher. Can Bryan counter with a 3 or 5? He does. Okay, so let's see what that was going to be. That was going to be the pile driver. Okay, so let's see what Bryan counters with. He needs a 3 or 5 for it to be a finisher. And it will be. 7, 3. Okay, let's see if Bret can counter with a 4 or a 2. He does. We have a match, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so pile driver countered into, what is it? Crucifix elbows, which doesn't make all that much sense, but we'll go with it. Bryan has 2 reversals left. Bret has 3 reversals left. 4 or 2, let's see if Bret can counter with a finisher of his own. He does. Going back to the well with the pile driver. Let's see if Bryan can counter with a 3 or a 5. He does. 3 or 5. Let's see if Bryan counters with a finisher. This is... I hope you guys understand how much I love this. Like, this is exactly what I wanted out of this sort of main event, especially for the first World Championship. This is absolutely tremendous. Okay, so Bryan counters 3 or 5. Let's see if he can counter with a finisher. He does not. Okay. Already. So, going back to the well. 38, 34, 34, surfboard leg stomp. Little weird, but okay, I'll allow it. 88. 5 points from Bret Hart. Honestly, if anyone could do it, Bryan could do it. Countering a pile driver with a surfboard double leg stomp. Okay, 1 over 2. With the 1, that's another signature for Bryan. 14. European uppercut. That's a strike. That's pretty much a head, so let's see how many he hits. You can't hit a European uppercut to the leg. That would be just absurd. Okay, so heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. Additional 1 for Bryan. That's 2 European uppercuts. 2 uppercuts, okay. So that will be... Actually, that will bring Bret Hart's head health down to 0. So let's give Bret the opportunity to counter that with a 4 or a 2. And he does. He does. Okay. Bret Hart's now down to 2 reversals. Bryan is at 1 reversal. Bret's head still fine. Not great, but fine at 10 points. Let's see what Bret counters with. 4 or 2 will be a finisher. It is not. He is out of high spots, so this will be a signature move. 13. Let's see what Bret has for 13. Oh, that's the one. 13, that'll be a hair pull slam. Okay, so that'll focus on Bryan's head. That was at 52 health points. He is now down to 47. And that'll be 5 points off of Bryan's overall health, 35. The next number to avoid will be 25. That will bring the finishers down to 5 points and the signatures down to 3. 2 over 2. Bret's going to recover. Bret is 2 recoveries away from regaining a reversal. 2 over 2. He's 1 away. 2. Hang on. Over 2. He has 3 reversals now. One over 2. Bryan coming back with a 2. That is a signature move. 38. That will be the yes kicks. So let's see here. Those are kicks to the chest. Let's see how many he can get. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that will be 3 plus 1 for the initial. That is 20 points off of Bret. Guess we're still at 5. Yes, we are still at 5. Okay. So Bret's torso is from 69 down to 49 points, and his base health is now down to 26. 2 over 2. He's going to recover 1. 2 over 1 with a 6 as a signature. 11. Let's see what 11 is. 11 is a figure 4 leg lock. Now that would certainly damage Bryan's legs past the injury threshold here, so he'd really be risking injury. Let's see if Bryan can counter with a 3 or a 5. He has 1 reversal left, and he does not. Okay, so let's go into the coin. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. 1 for Bret, 2. Okay, so that's 2 plus the initial, so 2 would be 6 plus 5 because it's half of the initial on top of it. So that means 11. So Bryan's legs are now minus 7 points, which is not good. He's probably going to carry that into a future match. 11 points from Bryan. That brings him down right to 26. This match is once again neck and neck. It is wild how things play out. Okay. So Bryan likely grabbed the ropes there. Let's see what happens here. 1 over 1. Bryan's going to recover 1. Exactly tied. Exactly tied. That's awesome. Okay. Gonna keep going. 1 over 1. Another point recovery for Bryan. He is 1 recovery away from getting an additional reversal. That'll bring his reversals up to 2. 1 over 1, and he has it. He has 2 reversals left. He has 2 reversals to Bret Hart's 3 reversals. Now, both of these guys are dangerously close to that 25-point threshold. After that, both their finishers will go down below 10 points to 5, and all their signatures will go from 5 points to 3. 1 over 1, another recovery for Bryan. Honestly, Bryan might inch his way out of there, though. He might inch his way past that danger. 1 over 2 with a 5. That is a finisher. Bret counters with his own reversal. Let's see what Bryan was going to hit there. It was going to be the yes lock, I believe. Bryan tried for the yes lock. Let's see what Bret responds with. 4 or 2 will be a finisher, and it will be a finisher. Let's see if Bryan can counter with a 3 or a 5. He does. Let's see what Bret was going for. Bret was going for the pile driver. Let's see what Bryan's going for. 3 or 5 will be a finisher. It will not. It will be a signature. 38. 16. Let's see what that is. 16 is a forearm smash. Okay. He hit that earlier in the match. Let's see if Bret can counter. 4 or 2 will counter. And it's not. Okay. So, at least one forearm smash for Bryan. Let's see what we got here. Heads will be for Bryan. Tails will be for Bret. 1 for Bryan. Another for Bryan. Okay, so that's 3 forearm strikes. Actually, we didn't choose a target here. Let's go with 1 or 2. Head or torso. That's not what I wanted. Torso, okay. So that's 15 points from his torso. His torso is at 49. It's now down to 34. Bret Hart is now below that threshold. He did have the opportunity to reverse. He did not take that opportunity. So he is now down to 12. So his finishers are now at 5. His signatures are now at 3. 1 over 1. Bryan's going to recover a point. 2 over 1 with a 2. That is a finishing move. Let's see if Bryan can counter with a 3 or 5. This time he cannot. Let's see what Bret's going to hit. Bret locks in the sharpshooter. Bryan's legs are at -7. That is not going to be good for future matches. That is going to be a base of 5 points away from Bryan. Let's see how long it takes him to get out of this. So, tails for Bret, heads for Bryan. Come on. And Bryan's right out of it. So that's 25 points. Bryan's legs now down to -12. Okay. 2 over 1. That is Bret over Bryan. 3, that's a signature. This will send Bryan down below that 25-point threshold, so he will use a reversal to try to avoid that. And he gets it. Okay, so let's see what Bret was going for. 38, 30. Bret was going for the sleeper hold. Bryan reverses. Let's see what he reverses with. Bryan now has no more reversals left. He can recover some if he uses 3 more recoveries, but right now he is pretty much helpless to anything that Bret Hart might execute against him. So 3 or 5 will be a finisher for Bryan. It is a 6. That is actually a high spot. So let's see what else we have for Bryan's high spots. He used the diving knee. He used the springboard cannonball. He has 3 others that he could use. It would be the backflip. Is it the backflip? Backflip the crooked arm lariat. We've seen him do many times before. All right, let's see if Bret can counter, since that will be 10 points of damage. I mean, that's pretty significant. Bret needs a 4 or a 2 to counter. And he does not. Okay. So Bryan hits the crooked arm lariat. That will be... Is that a... I think that's a head shot, actually. So Bret's head is now down to 0. That is right on the cusp of injury risk there. And he is at 2. That will not be an automatic pinfall. But Bret Hart is right on the bubble. If his health goes below 0 and Bryan locks in a submission, this match is over and Bryan is your new KYR World Champion. 2 over 1 with a 1. That is a signature. Bryan has no chance of reversing that. 12. German suplex to Bryan. I'm going to say that lands on the neck there. So that'll be 3 points away from Bryan's body. That's 66 down to 63. That brings Bryan's overall health down to 22. 1 over 2 with a 1. Bret Hart is right on the bubble here. He is going to try to use a reversal to get out of this. It is a 4 or a 2. And he cannot. Let's see what Bryan hits him with. 23. Let's see what 23 is. This will be 3 points from Bret. That will bring him down to -1. If I can find this. Okay. 23 is the regalplex. So Bryan's going to dump him right on his head with the regalplex. That will bring him down to -3 on the head. -1 in real life. Or rather, his overall health. And since he's below 0, that will be an automatic pinfall. So Bret needs to get an even number out of these next 3 rolls, or he'll lose the match. And he kicks out immediately. That's good. Okay. Get on the right screen here. 2/2. Bret is going to recover. He's back to 0. (2/1). With a finisher, Bryan has no chance of avoiding this. He doesn't have any reversals left. And it's the sharpshooter, right on the injured legs of Bryan. So that will be 5 points from Bryan, plus, remember, Bryan is heads, Bret is tails, and Bryan's right out of it. Okay, so that's 5 from Bryan there. His legs are now down to -17. And his overall health is right at 17. 2/2. Bret's going to recover 1. It's getting to the point where these recoveries mean so much to Bret. 2/2. That's another. If Bret gets 1 more recovery, he could probably withstand another signature from Bryan and still be okay. He won't face an automatic pinfall. 1/1. Bryan's going to recover now. Bryan needs 2 more recoveries and he will get another reversal, which is desperately needed at this point. 2/1 with a signature move. 9. Elbow to knee, right on the injured knee. So that is -20 for Bryan on the legs. And that will be 15 points for him. If he goes below 0, with his legs being in the condition they're in, it could be a referee stoppage as well. We will have to see that. 2/2. Bret going to recover 1 more point. That might keep him out of the danger zone if he gets another signature from Bryan. It will not save him from a finisher, however. 1/2. 3 or 5 is a finish. And it's a signature. Let's see what it is. Number 3 is a back superplex. A back superplex this deep into the match, that will knock Bret's health down to 0. That is not an automatic pinfall, however. It will also take 3 points off of his body. That's 34 down to 31. Alrighty. Don't need to be on that screen. Here we go. 2/1. With a 6, that is a signature move for Bret. 1. Let's see what that is. The arm wringer. And actually, because Bryan had the broken arm before, let's see if that's a critical hit. Bret needs a 5 for it to be critical. And it's not. Okay, just basic move. So 3 points from Bryan. That brings him down to 12. His arms are now at... I can barely read my own writing. We'll call that 55. That might not be right. Actually, no, that was 50. Okay, we'll call it 55. I don't think this contest is going to go down to Bryan's arm health. 1 over 1. Bryan's going to recover a point. If he gets one more recovery like that, he will get another reversal. 1 over 1, and he gets the reversal. So Bryan now has 1 reversal back. Bret has 2 reversals. 2 over 1 with a 1. Let's see what he's doing. 34. Sunset flip. Sunset flip. Let's see if Bryan can kick out. Bryan needs at least one odd number from this sequence. 1, 2, 3. Now Bryan has 1 more reversal. If he can get an odd number, he will kick out. If not, Bret Hart is the KYR World Champion. And Bryan kicks out with his final reversal. What a wild match. Okay. Bryan has no reversals left. He needs 5 recoveries to get a reversal. His legs are at negative 20. Bret Hart is right on the bubble at 0. Bryan has 11 points. Overall health. Let's see how this wraps up. 2 over 2. Bret's going to recover 1. And Bret Hart gets 1 reversal back. He is now at 3. That will be his ceiling because his health is so low. He cannot earn a 4th or a 5th reversal at this juncture. 2 over 1. The 5, he has used up all of his high spots. So this will be a signature. 27. Let's see what 27 is. A schoolboy. Another pinfall attempt for Bret Hart. Okay. Now, if the same thing happens last time where we get 3 even numbers in a row, Bret Hart wins. Bryan has no other recoveries that he can do. He has no other reversals to give him an extra roll. So let's see how it goes. Bryan immediately kicks out. Okay. We still have a match. 1 over 1. Bryan's going to recover. Bryan really needs to recover. He needs to get some reversals. 2 over 1 with a signature. Let's see if it's another pinfall. 5. Let's see what 5 is. Crucifix pin. Yo. Okay. Let's see if we can do it. Odds for Bryan, evens for Bret. 1. Kick out at 1. My guy. My guy. All right. 2 over 1 with a finisher. Bryan cannot reverse this at all. This could be the end of the match if it's a sharpshooter. Sharpshooter is 1, pile driver is 2. It's the sharpshooter. Okay. So Bret knocks Bryan's legs down to 25. These points will be down to 7. Every additional flip of this coin is another 3 points on Bryan's legs. Let's see what happens. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. I don't think it flipped. This is not working really well. Hang on. Okay. None of those are going to count. This is a fresh start. Okay, that's 1 for Bret. And Bryan gets out. Okay, so that's 8 points Bryan is down to 4. His legs are at -28. If he goes below 0, we'll have to see if the ref calls it. And to determine that, we will do a random number generator from 1 to 100. And if that number shows up between 1 and 28, the ref will call the match. That's how we'll work that in. Alrighty. 2 over 2. Bret's going to recover. It's insane that we could actually see Bret Hart surpass the basic health points of Bryan at this point, considering how much abuse he's taken throughout this match. 2 over 2. He could very well tie him on the next roll. 1 over 2. Bryan's not going to let it happen. And that's a 1. Bret could eat his signature depending on what it is. 3. Let's see what that is. If it's a submission, it's another back superplex. Now, Bryan hit that earlier in the match, so we should give Bret the opportunity to reverse it. 4 or 2 will reverse. And he doesn't get it. Okay, another back superplex from Bryan. That brings Bret's health down to 0. But the match is not yet over. And that's not an automatic pinfall either. 1 over 1. Bryan's going to recover. He needs 3 more recoveries to get a reversal. 1 over 2 with a signature. And Bret will have to counter this if he wants to avoid an automatic pinfall attempt. So 4 or 2. He does not. 6 from Bryan. What is that on his signatures? A chop? Could this match end with a chop? All right, let's see how many Bryan gets. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. Okay, 1 chop from Bryan. So that knocks Bret down to -3. That should be a pinfall attempt. Honestly, it would work if Bryan was like stealing a page from Will Ospreay's book and just tried to hit a hidden blade. So we'll see if it works. I don't know why I'm on the coin. We don't need that. Okay. So where are we? Right. Odds for Bryan, evens for Bret. Bret immediately kicks out after a chop. Go figure. I still need to be on the die. Here we go. 2 over 2. Bret's going to recover. 2 over 2. Bret's going to recover again. 1 over 2 with a 5. That is a finisher. Let's see if Bret can counter. He needs a 4 or a 2. And he does. And he does. All right, let's see what it was. 7, 5. So let's see what that is for Bryan. I don't think he hit this match yet. It would have been the heel hook. Okay. So Bryan goes for the heel hook. Bret counters. Let's see what he counters with. Is it a signature or is it a finisher? 4 or 2 for finisher. It is a signature. 16. 16. Counters it with a headbutt. Okay. Because of their history, let's see. This could be critical if Bret rolls a 5. And he does. Yikes, dude. Okay. Critical hit from Bret. Yep, we're going to the coin. See how many he hits. This is getting sick. Okay. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's 5 headbutts to Bryan. And Bryan has no reversals. He cannot... Okay, so here's the thing. Bryan cannot counter that. Bret Hart is still below negative. So that means his finishers or finisher style... Actually, no, what am I saying? His finishers would theoretically degrade to 3, and his signatures would degrade to 1. Because it's critical, those signatures are now doubled. So Bret Hart just hit 5 headbutts in a row. 5 times 2, that's 10. So Bryan is at -5. Now, because he's at -5, he cannot just get a simple odd number to kick out. He will need to roll a 3 or a 5, his finishing numbers, in order to kick out of this. He has 3 rolls to do so. He has no other reversals. So this could be at 3 or 5. And he immediately kicks out Fighting Spirit by Daniel Bryan. What a match. Okay. That's also 10 points off of his head health. That brings him down to 37. That is an absolutely sick near fall, though. Like, that is... Oh, my gosh. Okay. 1 over 2 with... That's a finisher from Bryan. And actually, Bret is now down to 2 reversals. Let's see if he can counter with a 4 or 2. And he does. What was that going to be? It's going to be number 3. What is number 3? Crucifix elbows. Okay, so he counters the crucifix elbows. He's now down to 1 reversal left. Bryan has no reversals. Bret needs a 4 or a 2 for it to be a finisher. It is a finisher. Is it the sharpshooter or is it the pile driver? Either one at this point could be deadly. If it's the sharpshooter, it's all over. It's the pile driver. So Bryan has a very, very slim chance. If Bret rolls a 5, this is a critical. And that means Bryan will take 6 points worth of damage. It is not. He will only take 3 points worth of damage, but that is not good for Bryan. 3 points. That knocked it down to... His head health is now down to 34. He needs a 3 or a 5 to kick out. If not, it's all over, and Bret Hart is your new KYR World Champion. 1. Kick out at 1. My goodness. Okay. Kick out at 1 by Bryan. 2. Over 2. Bret is going to recover. Now that he's at 0, his finishers will be 5, and his signatures will be 3. If there's criticals, they will also still double. So if he hits a headbutt, that will be 6 points right off the bat. 1 over 2 with a finisher. Oh my gosh. Okay, Bret has 1 reversal left. It has to be a 4 or a 2. Let's see if he can do it. He does not. Let's see what Bryan's going to hit him with. If it's a submission, this is all over because Bret will be underneath the threshold. 4. I don't think we've seen 4 this entire match. What is it? Double wrist lock stomps. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that is definitely to the head. Bryan needs a 6 for this to be a critical. It's not a critical. How many does he hit, though? So he gets 1 right off the bat. That will bring Bret down to -3. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. He only hits 1 stomp. -3. That brings... Oh my gosh, that brings Bret's head down to -6 because it wasn't -3. Okay. So for starters, I mentioned this before, that could be referee stoppage. I will do this. Actually, let me see if we can get a pinfall first. Okay. Bret is in between 0 and -5. That means he can kick out with a simple even number. 2, 4, or 6, and Bret Hart kicks out. 1, 2, and he kicks out at 2. Referee's going to check on him. If it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, the referee's going to stop the match. It is 40. We're okay. 1 over 2. That's Bryan over Bret. With a signature, Bret is going to have to use try to use a reversal to get out of this. 4 or 2 will reverse. He does not. Okay. 38, 16. If this is a submission, it's all over. 16 from Bryan. Is a forearm smash, my gosh. Okay. To the chest or head. To the head. Let's see if it's critical. 6 for critical. And it is. My goodness. An absolutely brutal match. Let's see how many he hits. Heads for Bryan, tails for Bret. Alright, he only hits 1. So that's a critical hit. That's -2. That brings Bret to 5. That brings his head health down to -8. Bret is now at -5. He'll need a 4 or a 2 to kick out. He has 1 reversal left if he needs it. He kicks out immediately. Referee's going to check on him. If this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, the referee's going to call the match. It is 55. We're still rolling. 1 over 2 with a signature. Bret, can you reverse with a 4 or a 2? He cannot. 34 from Bryan. Surfboard double leg stomp. That would be such a goofy move to end this match. Bret's legs are at 87 health. They're perfectly fine. That is 1 point from Bret. That is an automatic pinfall attempt. Bret needs a 2 or 4 to kick out. 1. Okay, he kicks out at 1. Thankfully, I did not want this match to end that way. 1 over 2. With the finisher, can Bret counter with a 4 or 2? He cannot. Let's see what finisher that is. It's the Busaiku knee. Bryan is below, so that means finishers are 3 times 2, that's 6. Let's see if he can hit a critical. 6 for critical. It is not. It's still 6 points from Bret. Bret is at -12. Now that Bret is at -12, he can only roll 1 number to kick out, and that is the number 5. That is his own critical roll. Also, his head health is now down to -14. That means if he kicks out, we'll see if the ref calls the match. He needs a 5 to kick out. 1. Okay, I think that's 1, 2, and then he kicks out at 2. Okay. If this is 1 through 14, the referee's going to call it. Is 84 we're still rocking? Okay. 1 over 1. Bryan's going to recover a point. If Bryan gets 2 more recoveries, he will get another reversal back. That will put him on par with Bret Hart, who also has 1 reversal. 2 over 1. Bret Hart finally firing back at Bryan. He needs a 4 or 2 for this to be a finisher. It is a signature. If this is a submission, it's all over. And if it targets the legs, the referee's going to check on Bryan, who is in much worse shape than... His legs are in much worse shape than Bret Hart's head. 38-8. Let's see what that is. An elbow drop. An elbow drop. Where? Okay. 1 to the head, 2 to the body, 3 to the arms, 4 to the leg. And it's to the leg. Elbow drop to the leg. So Bryan is now back down to 8. -8, that is. His legs are now at -29. Honestly, that is a weird thing to kind of pinfall on. I'm going to see if the referee calls it. If it's 1 through 29, the referee will call the match and Bret Hart is your world champion. It is 26. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the match. Bret Hart wins the KYR World Championship via referee decision because he determined Bryan Danielson could not continue. What a match. What a match. Oh my word. Okay. Just for the sake of it, let's see if Bryan could have kicked out. He is at -8. He's at -8. He would need a 3 or a 5 to kick out. And he would have. He immediately would have. My word. Okay. That, my friends, that would be a great argument for a rematch. We will have to see. As of right now, Bret the Hitman Hart, your first ever KYR World Champion. We will have to see who his challenger is at Show 2, live from St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you all. I will upload this, and I will upload the official write-up to r/KYR booking shortly. Thank you once again.